Money is numbers, and numbers will never end. If it takes money to be happy, your search for happiness will never end. Bob Marley. One of my favorite all-time quotes. There's actually another quote from him. I don't even know if these quotes are for him or just people that take good quotes and put Bob Marley on them. But another quote is, the day that you stop racing is the day you win the race, right? Or something like that. So today I wanted to talk about kind of a concept that's come up a couple times this week for me personally, just with stuff going on around me. And it's kind of the concept of why people chase, and how the chase itself is really what makes you unhappy, right? And kind of a weird spin on how I think actually goal setting can be something that creates a lot of anxiety for people. So I want to kind of, this is going to be a shorter one today. I just want to kind of just raft on this one, just figure out just, where my brain goes as I start talking about this, right? So I deal with this with clients all the time, right? And I deal with this personally all the time, right? It was just this concept that we end up chasing the next thing, right? And we're never really going to be satisfied. It's a good old quote like, hey, we're happy but never satisfied kind of thing. Which is, I'm not going to discredit anything that I'm talking about today on the other end of this opinion. I just want to kind of give you a different perspective on how maybe these things could be going on in your head and the mindset and the perspective behind it. So coming back to that is like the concept behind the chase means that we're always chasing something. We're chasing a financial reward. We're chasing more business. We're chasing a life partner. We're chasing, I don't know, whatever it is, happiness or whatever, the weights or whatever the hell it is, in life. We end up chasing a lot of these things. And why I think so many people are unfulfilled is because we're stuck in this concept of chase, right? Which kind of comes back to the same narrative of thinking that like being very results focused versus process oriented, and how being focused on the process is the thing that actually gets you to become present versus the thing of focusing on goals and results gets you to kind of create some anxiety or level around that because you're focused on something you do not have yet. So before I kind of go down this rabbit hole, I want to just kind of talk on the importance that I've talked about multiple times on previous podcasts, that goal setting is still very, very important. It is something that I think we all should be doing in the macro and the micro. But I don't think it needs to be something that you have to do, which is kind of what I'm focusing on today, right? Because I've talked in previous podcasts of like having intention and having a target or having a direction at least to be heading towards is something that's obviously going to make it easier to stay accountable. It gives you some level of structure. And you kind of know where you're going, right? So you're not just kind of in this very just mindless state and just kind of living day to day. Now, on the other end, which is what I want to talk about today, and I was talking about this with a client the other day with just kind of joking around how my training has been in a maintenance mode for probably 6 years. And it sounds funny to say that when you think like, why the hell would you be in maintenance mode? But for me personally, like, I am very happy where my body's at and kind of my level of fitness is, and my nutrition is definitely something that's progressed a lot, and some of the other kind of holistic side of the foundational items to health have definitely improved a lot. But from a training perspective, honestly, I'm not any stronger. I'm not any leaner. I've kind of been the same body weight for a very long time. And for a lot of people hearing that, you would think like that's not progressing, right? Like it's like you're either growing or you're dying kind of scenario. I want to battle against that today. I want to basically say that that's okay to be in a state of maintenance. It's okay to be in a state of gratitude and understand that where you're at, if you are in a good place, is a pretty good place to be at. Now, just to kind of wrap up the goal setting part of it, if you're not in a place where you can actually be content and be happy and be grateful where you're at, then A, there's some mindset stuff obviously we want to look at, or B, it's like, okay, maybe you're still in a state where you need to be setting these goals where you need to be growing towards, right? Like money was super important to me when I was younger in life and I didn't have a lot of it, or I didn't have what I thought enough of it would be at that time. And as I've gotten older and I've realized that money is just a way to keep score for me, or money is just kind of something that's important, but I have enough to live the life that I currently live, and I'm very happy with my lifestyle as is. So having something for me to continue to grow and chase into is, that's kind of the seesaw that we need to talk about, is like, we're always growing, like hopefully we're always focusing on process and progress. But don't let the goal get ahead of you where it takes you out of a state of presence and it takes you out of a state of being happy and where you're currently at, right? So think about this with work scenario. Think about this with relationships. Think about this with your health and your fitness, is when you look at goal setting, Goals are something that are not acquired yet, right? It's basically a target for something that's ahead of you in the future, right? Versus process is what are you currently doing in today's and current minute, current second, current situation, because that is the definition of staying in presence. So I'm going to kind of use a couple different examples that kind of explain this, right? So for me, just to kind of start on the business side of things, when I first probably got into my 20s, I knew I wanted to open up a gym at 16. I don't think it was a very money-driven thing. It was more of I wanted independence. I hated being told what to do in my teenager years, and which I'm sure a lot of teenagers do. But as I got into kind of my early 20s, I was like, no, I want to be able to make a fuck ton of money, and I want to be able to control my own destiny, and I want to be independent in that aspect. I don't want to be limited or have a cap on the ceiling of what I can make from working from somebody else or being told what to do. As I've, now coming up on 5 years of owning the business, I've realized that the freedom for me was actually the thing that I was most attracted to. And I didn't know that at the time of not owning a business. But I also, before opening the business and even the beginning stages of the business, I thought the money was really the driving, motivating factor for me. When in reality, it was a point system. It was a way for me to tell, like I said, I'm not going to discredit anything today. Money is a great way for me to kind of keep score on how I'm doing in business, right? That's the way I look at it. It's like, if we're making money and we're growing and we're profiting, it's like, cool, the business is doing something right. And let's continue to progress and focus on the process of the things that we're doing. Versus I'm never happy because we could always be making more money. And that's the thing that I think all of us get stuck in. And this is why so many people are unhappy and anxious around so many things, surrounded by the chase versus doing the thing that actually attracts the result that we're looking for. So I can be unhappy with where I'm currently at in my business because it's not maybe where I thought I was going to be 5 years ago. That's a way I could look at it. Or I can focus on today's current state. What can I do today, right now, that's going to help me move this ball forward a little bit in my business? What's going to be the thing that's going to be able to retain more clients? What's going to be able to the thing that's going to be allow me to acquire more customers? What's going to be able to the thing that keeps the coaches here longer, keeps the best type of talent working for me? All that stuff is me thinking ahead of it, but I really need to focus on what can I currently do right now? What are the systems that I can do right now? What are the actions that I can take right now that allow me to do those things that are coming in the future as maybe a goal of mine versus getting stuck on the goal only, right? So when you think about all these things, and then we think about this with fitness, I think about this all the time because we see it all the time in class, right? Like a lot of times people are in class and they're just going mindlessly through a warm-up, going through kind of the reset stage and not even really focus on just adding more weight, or there's no intentionality behind the reps and the focus of the reps. You're kind of just going mindlessly through the motions, and then you review yourself in a month or a quarter or 6 months or a year, and you realize you're not really making as much progress as you should, or you're still not even at your goal, and now I'm unhappy. And I think this is where a lot of people tend to quit. I think this is why so many people are unhappy with their current situations in life, and it's because you're not really focused on the process, you're only focused on the result. Now, the result, like I've said a million times in the past, is the driver. It is the derivative of motivation. Like when we see progress, we are motivated by it. And this is why I think some of my mindset has changed in some of these subjects, is because, yes, I've had progress in some areas and a lot of areas of my life that I'm super grateful for, which is maybe what's allowed me to stay motivated, what's allowed me to be happy with where I'm currently at. But also, I still catch myself doing it all the time. Like I had one of those days yesterday. I was like, there's so much more we can be fucking doing right now with the team or with this or that. And instead of doing the thing that actually improves the actual thing that I was worried about, I'm just kind of sitting there drowning in my sorrows going, like we could do this better, we could do that better, versus actually just taking action. So I was skipping the process and only focusing on kind of the result and the goal. And that is where I caught myself. And like yesterday, I was just like caught myself in like one of those funks. I was like, I don't know why today's kind of aggravated me. There was nothing really necessarily was going on. I just felt like I could be doing more. But instead of actually taking action and doing more, I just thought I could be doing more. And that is a dangerous spiral to get into. And I think this is why we see so many people start and quit diets so often. This is why so many people quit their jobs and move to different things, or they jump from relationship to relationship, is you're so focused on the result. You're so focused on the destination of where you're going that your eyes are only focused there and you're not focused on what you're currently doing. So if you want to see results with your diet, if you want to see results in the gym, you have to look at everything being one rep at a time and giving 100% of your intentionality behind everything you do, focus on the actual process of what you're currently doing. And are you truly challenging yourself to be at that best possible capability and output and capacity of what you currently can do in that moment? That should be the only thing that we focus on, because if we only focus on the micro, if we only focus on the present moment, and we only focus on getting better one rep at a time or one set at a time, naturally in the macro, you're going to hit your goals. You're going to be progressing. And it doesn't matter how small or big the goal is. At the end of the day, we're all chasing progress, but the progress stems from the process. So if you skip the process and you just focus on being kind of in the current state of the goal, I'm going to say this a million times over today's podcast, you are never going to be happy. You're always going to be anxious. You're never going to be really kind of fulfilled in what you're doing, right? And it goes for every area, right? Like what we look for in ourselves, what we look for in relationships, right? What we look for in kind of nutrition and diet world, that's all the same thing. Is we're focused too much on what's going to be there versus what is there. And really like that, I've always used the quote that it's like, hey, you know, a lot of us chase the shiny object syndrome or we always go to the greener grass. The grass is only green where you water it, right? And it's as simple as that. It's like where you put your intention and how you have your intention towards that subject is really what you're going to get in your return, right? So when you think about this with kind of diets and when I think about this with clients, when I talk about dieting, is a lot of times they get really kind of out of their head because they're like, oh, I really had a bad week or I had a bad thing. I'm like, hey, it doesn't matter what you had bad, good or bad, what happened in the past. Let's focus on one meal at a time, right? Just make your next meal good. Don't focus on today. Just focus on breakfast, right? Let's make breakfast good. And then when we're done with breakfast, then we're going to focus on the next one, which is lunch, right? Or whatever I'm currently doing. So like I said, I just wanted to kind of leave that short today, really just kind of give you guys the concept that understanding that chasing something is never going to make you happy, because a lot of times what you're chasing is a number, right? So if you're chasing a weight on the scale, you're chasing a weight on the bar, you're chasing a time on your mile, you're chasing the amount of, money you make in a job or whatever it is, right? Like you're going to be chasing numbers and numbers never end. And this is why I want to open up with today's Bob Marley quote. Like it's such a true quote and it's such a true statement. Like you will never be satisfied and you'll never be happy because those things never end, right? You're going to get down to 15% body fat, then you're going to want 14, and then you're going to want 13, or you're going to make 100,000, then you're going to want 200, then you're going to make 250. You're going to get down to, or get up to a 300 pound deadlift, and then you're going to want 400. Like you're going to get to a 6 mile minute mile, and then you're going to want 5. Like you're always going to want the next thing, and that's okay, right? Like we should be focused on progressing, but just don't get stuck with the chase, right? Get focused on the process of what you're doing. Focus on attracting the result versus chasing the result. And the biggest difference is the mindset on how you actually approach that, right? Because when you really can focus on the process, all those things that you are chasing end up attracting to you. And it's as simple as that. So all I want to leave you with you guys today is please do not chase what you're going after, attract what you're going after. And the only way you can attract these results is by focusing on the process, because the process is where the progress is at. The process is where presence belongs. The presence is where true happiness lives, because anytime you get ahead of yourself or you get behind yourself, you are either going to be depressed to a certain extent or you're going to be anxious to a certain extent. And we never will be fully satisfied with what we're doing. Okay? That's all I want to leave you guys with. So have a great weekend. Talk to you guys later.